have got some sort of idea of a program. We're either going to insource, we're going to outsource. We know the change. We've got a theory of practice and we've got a theory of change. Let's just talk a little bit about this solicitation or the request for proposals. If we decide we're going to use third parties, NGOs, to manage and implement for us, what does that cycle look like? And here I just want to talk about one of the biggest issues is this due diligence process. How do we decide a yes or a no? And I have made the point earlier this morning around, we do all this paper checks. Where's your certificate and, where's your financial statements? This is what we kind of do before we make a yes or a no decision. Then there's an actual grant making, the actual transfer of money. And then there's another process where we're going to assess, and then there's a closure. So for the next section, this is the kind of cycle or part of the grant making process that I want to focus on. And it's about this making decisions kind of process. It's not just, are we going to fund or not fund? Are we going to fund this organization or not? Are we going to fund this type of program or not? So here's my question to you. Apart from assessing the credibility of an organization, what else do you use to make your decisions? How do you make a yes or no decision? An NGO come with a board. How do you decide yes or no? Okay, very good.
How do you choose it? I think they must have a track record and show results, stuff that they've done.
Right.
Do they have an exit strategy?
Do they have an exit?
And I think it also depends if there is a research need in terms of is there a real need in that particular.
So you would look for evidence of engagement or a needs assessment.
Need, but also, again, that work, we're going to talk about sustainability as well.
Yes. Yes.
After, what happens after?
You see, and the point that I just want to make here is, there's a lot of focus today on saying yes. So there's a lot of hoops people must jump through before you finally say yes. But I do want to raise the issue around saying no. I have found, and I don't know if it's because of our country and the situation that we're in, because of bribery and corruption, that there are some NGOs that is challenging decisions. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to defend the decision you've made? Because it was an open process. If you had an open request for proposals, it's the same as publishing a tender. So you've actually got to make clear why you say no. Now, it's very easy to say no because it's not in our funding area. But what if there was a specific call for proposals on a specific, and you got that specific requests answered? And I just want to bring in this ethical and moral question. Because it feels to me that funders or investors play God. We decide who's going to eat today or not. And this now speaks to this power relationship. And this is what I want to bring into the discussion. This power, this us and them kind of thing. Because we focused a lot on the investor side. But here's the problem, what happens if stuff goes wrong as well? Because with the best intention, we've got a theory of practice, we've got a theory of change, we've got grant-making principles, we've got grant-making criteria, but not every project works. Why doesn't it work? And this happens in our due diligence process, and that's why I want to talk about saying yes or saying no. Because we're so fixated on the certificate, and you mentioned this whole, did we look at the basis of their program design? Where was their theory of practice? Where's their theory of change? Now, put your hands up for those of you who currently ask for a theory of change. So therefore, the assumption is you make it based on your assessment of an organization, right? Their credibility. But what are we going to measure? The outcome of a program. So when you do your due diligence, what of the program aspects are you looking at? At this point in time, I can categorically state that 99% of all decisions is based on an organization, their credibility, their competency. But when we assess, we look at program outcomes. So your due diligence process must move beyond whether it's a credible organization, and you mentioned the credibility. So what are you going to ask for to show credibility? Where's the engagement? How was the problem identified? How was the problem or the solution, the design of that program designed to fit that program? Where's the theory of change? Where's your research? Now I'm going to ask Wendy and Melanie, who actually writes these proposals, to say, in your current structure, how much do you move into actual contextual information around? And I'm not asking, when it's an education program, the status of education, because we all know that. A specific program design approach in applications. Exactly. So here's the question, what do we assess? How do we make a decision, yes, we're going to fund, or no, we're not going to fund?
So is it easy to look first at the NGO? And that's, I'm saying that I'm looking at the NGO and I see, even if the program is great, good, but the NGO is not credible for whatever reason. And we'd rather not go in there because the repetition issue is one. That would be the obvious.
Yes, it would be obvious. But there's too many assumptions built into it. And if I had to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10 about the credibility of an organization, and I'm going to put an organization's name, and you decide. So if I say 1 is little credible, so there's hardly credibility, and 10 is they're very credible. And I say the name, SOS Children's Village. On a scale of 1 to 10, 6. 7. 6.
What's not credible about it?
No, he said, I base it on the credibility of an organization. So what is credibility? It's a reputation. It's what we know.
Yes.
We think we know. So if I said Red Cross, what number? 8, 7, 3. If I say Reach for a Dream Foundation, 8.
Children. I think it's not only what you know, it's how much you know, because I think you can make that judgment based on how close you are to what they do, or how have you seen their logo or on the road. Because I think we have, it's based on exposure and experience, so it's not an accurate measurement to give them a 10, because you might rate them a 10 and the person next to you might rate them a 3.
But is there something important, or you said it's about exposure and experience, so is it not sometimes the ones who shout the loudest we recognize and then we attach certain credibility to it?
I mean, obviously what you look for is a need. If there's a need, you want to help where you can, okay? Now this company or this NGO comes to you, you look at it, some you don't have the time to spend what a month to know exactly, and you go by perception as to how you think, you know, what's happening in the newspapers, because surely you won't give the ones that is read in the newspapers something. So I think that's my thinking.
Honestly, I don't think we ever really know how credible that is. It's all basically marketing reputation.
I just wanted to give an example of early on in the year, the big buzz was Harambe this, Harambe that, and I think there were 702, and everyone knew that they were doing big things in the community. And when we did research in this field, a few girls said, well, you know, Harambe did come and see us, and they said they're going to give us jobs. They took my ID number, and I've never seen them since. You know, so it was like, okay, so the perception out there, the PR is, you know, the company to go to is Harambe. I'm sorry to say that, but then when you actually go into the community that they're supposedly doing all this, then it's a different perception.
And that's a very important point, because to whom do they deliver the service, but where do we ask the question?
Yeah.
But hence you look at what a lot of donors, corporates ask of the NGO in terms of information and, you know, stats and whatever, and sometimes it kills them to try and produce it. It's still not bridging that gap. So as we were saying earlier, there needs to be more communication, collaboration, and it seems to only happen with a very big, well-resourced company and a very big, well-resourced NGO, which is small.
Because of course, I'll tell you. Because here's the thing: we said we want to help communities. So, do we check with the communities? How many of you check actually the reputation in communities?
What do you do?
We've taken a couple of leaps of faith.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, with a bit of a spin there in terms of how do you identify or how do you make the selection. I guess it's also the one that shout loudest, you know, they'll be known. And I've also discovered that, you know, it's also executive influence, you know, top dogs that are sitting up there, you know, that, you know, you'll be sitting here with the budget because you know which they're not so well-known, you know, organizations want to come, but top-down mandate comes and says, you must support this initiative, you know, so there's also that kind of influence as well, you know, that you would want to do good for those ones that are doing well, but you know, there is work.
But can you see how subjective? Because just by saying one organization, we got to range from 3 to 8. So the assumption is the one with 3, we ain't going to touch them, we're not going to fund them. Others don't have that quality. So what we're trying to do here, guidelines for due diligence. It makes it easier to manage the 500 a month applications, but it also standardizes and give transparency to a process. Now, Wendy spoke about all this paperwork. So, in my humble opinion, they've got this stack, you know, they've paid for the professional portfolio and the profession, if they can, brochure, and that just gets added to it. So it's like a standard approach, it's part of a standard pack. Because quite honestly, they are every funder asks for different information. And this is a very discriminatory process, because the grassroots organizations where it's really needed cannot compete with that. So we keep on funding the same kind of organizations as well. So my question is here. Before you in future ask for a single piece of paper, what do you want to know? What do you want to know? Why do you want to know that? And then lastly, what will you do with this information? Because it's going to come in gonna, tick, tick, tick. Some of you will have even a score, 5 out of 10, which means no, we're not. We only fund those with 8 and more. Right? And there the information goes. Recycle bin. So my point here is, before you ask in future for a single piece of paper, are you going to ask the same kind of information for a 50 million rand program for the next 5 years as for a 2,000 rand donation? No, but that's actually what we do. That's actually what we do. We ask indiscriminately. There's a checklist. Don't talk to us if you haven't completed and signed off this checklist. Is this your certificate? Where's this? Where's that? Where's your audited financial statements? Original. Certified. Commissioner of Oaths. Your business plan. Your business plan, your organogram. No, seriously, guys, just go on the website.
Why are you putting us in this spot?
But this is the point. This is the point why we're having this discussion. The size of the program, the type of the program, the outcomes envisaged. Because here's what you're actually trying to do. Is you want to justify a decision. So we keep on asking the same stuff from the same people. We're getting the same stuff. Once we've got it, once we've made a decision, it's gone. So the point that I want to make here is, why do we want certain things? And so for me, there is an organization. The first thing you said, you want to know their history, you want to know their track record, you want to know their governance, their leadership, their vision, their strategy. But the real thing you want to know is, will they give me the outcomes I'm looking for? Not whether they've got a certificate. So that should weigh more. There should be more emphasis on that. And so my take on this is that you reconsider your due diligence approach, and that you look for clear strategic direction, that you look for evidence of impact. So instead of writing a 5-page how wonderful we are and the kind of programs we had and how much funding we've had and in how many schools we've worked, and we have won the season, seriously, and here's the beautiful 3 pictures that can fit, because otherwise the file size is too big, so it can only be 3 pictures. Ask for the narrative of evidence, because that's actually all that should speak, because that's what we're looking to do. So for me, there's one other thing, and I want to speak about organizational readiness, guys, because with the best intention, and this speaks to the capacity building, not every organization out there is ready for our kind of program that can deliver our kind of outcomes. So why have this discriminatory approach? We set them up for failure, we set them up for a no, all that time, all that effort, all that resources.
So, Joanna, please, and I don't know what the situation is with other trusts and other foundations, but I hear you, and although we might agree that there are other things way more than the EPO certificate. Tax experts in the organization and the auditors who have to write out a VE certificate have a very, very different view. It's an NPO or TPO or non-board. And in fact, the validation was a program where there was absolutely nothing wrong with the program, but we had to transition it to transition the ownership of the program to a registered NPO because the auditors said so.
Did you pay for it?
To
do that transition?
It's a very important question, and that is why I brought in Karen yesterday, because as appealing as social enterprises are, we're not set up to fund that as yet. So that's exactly the point that I want to make. We're so fixated. We say, the reason why I don't do my own is because they're ineffective, because they don't give me what I want. So I'm going to rather do my own thing. The question is, why are we so set up on the NGO sector? We demand sustainability. We keep them unsustainable. Why do we think that's the only vehicle to deliver an outcome? What is the secret behind an NGO thing? That they're the only people who can implement a program. That's the only structure we can find. How did we get there? How did we collectively decide to only fund that structure?
I think the codes have a lot to take blame for, especially the financial sector charter code, because every decision around that people relate back to, but we need to comply, we need to comply, we need to comply. So besides all the social outcomes that you're looking for, the hygiene factor, the hurdle that you first have to cross is compliance.
But with all due respect, I cannot remember in the BEE Act that it says it's got to be an NPO. That's not what it says. So I'm saying we got into certain ways of thinking just because we've always done it that way.
I can just share with you, Shani, that we engaged the services of a for-profit organization who worked in social development. And they were implementing a program for us in communities, and we were able, I got feedback that we are able to count that as part of our triple spend, because the people who are being supported through their program are people who qualify in terms of PPE. but as long as you keep a paper trail, as long as those people who are benefiting, you can say through the implementation of this program, more than 80% of people who were supported are PPE and all of that stuff. Even though they're for-profit, that still counts toward. You just don't get the tax deduction.
We had exactly the same setup with this project that I mentioned that we had the transition, and that's why I asked you who's your auditors. I really don't want to know. Because I think it's also because there's not a standard way of interpreting the code or interpreting the act in the audit community. So what you get is that your auditors might be completely fine with it and ours might not be.
Yes.
And then we make certain adjustments to our processes, which is actually unlikely.
Maybe this is the point, but I think then it will be expect from us as working, for those who work in the communities, to do their job for our communities. So I spoke to a legal NGO in Namibia who set out exactly what type of groups you get, like the voluntary and the welfare organizations. So with my Lex board, for them it's enough if it's a group of people.
So it's collective funding.
Yes, and so
Cooperatives.
What I do, first thing I advise them to at least go to the Ministry or Director of Health and Social Services, or to get a voluntary association, or a welfare organization, or just do the application. If you apply, then you get a certain paper. That's enough for us. So we must do more in our space.
Yes.
Help those people.
Yes.
That's what she talked about, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I hear that, and I want to highlight structural concerns because the theme of this whole thing is the world has changed, yet nothing has changed. It's like we expect different outcomes, but we keep on doing the same things. And that's the point. So I'm sorry, this is again a case study. It's very small. Okay, so let me just share with you a different way to coach this. Okay, so the first thing it says, this is the Global Fund for Children. Okay, selects partners based on demonstrated potential to produce sustainable improvement in the lives of vulnerable children and youth, and to serve as a resource or model for other organizations. Can you hear? They say, our focus is on orphan and vulnerable children. We're looking for people who can add new development models or serve as a resource. So a collective kind of approach is what we're looking for. They say here, prospective grantee partners must meet the following criteria in order to get our support. Number one, appropriate size and stage of development. They're saying with rare exceptions, partners' annual budgets should not exceed $200,000. In most cases, new partners must have budgets in the 25 US to 75 US range. Then our aim is to identify organizations at a relatively early stage in their development. Okay? So then they look for direct involvement with children and youth. They're saying prospective partners must work directly with children and youth. We do not support groups engaged exclusively in advocacy or research. We do, however, support organizations that perform both advocacy and direct service. Right? We're looking for capable management, we're looking for local leadership, and we're looking at a specific legal status. When it comes to our selection guidelines, the first and most important thing is we look for a focus on the most vulnerable. And they describe it here. Our partners must reach children of the last mile. So what does that mean? Those who are economically and socially outside the reach of mainstream services and support, including street children, child laborers, AIDS orphans, sex workers, hard to reach rural populations, and other vulnerable or marginalized groups. Then they say, we prioritize organizations that are rooted in their community. Not necessarily national organizations. Can you hear how you coach the words? Okay. That are rooted in their community and can operate with community input, involvement, investment, embracing the community is an integral part of our approach. They go on to say we prioritize organizations that can demonstrate sustained, meaningful improvement in the lives of the children and youth they serve. Empowerment, we prioritize organizations that engage children and youth as active participants in their own growth and development rather than as participants or recipients of services. This is a very unique approach for me. So they want to see evidence that the children is involved, not only in the design but execution. They're looking for innovation and creativity, they're looking for strong leadership, they're looking for adaptation, they're looking for the potential of sustainability, and, by the way, reputable and credible organizations. Can you hear? It's again defining very clearly without a discrimination lens. And that for me is important. I think we've set up grant-making with a development approach that is extremely discriminating.
It's a small question there. Given the fact that most of the time you are advised to keep your proposal as short, as focused as possible, the implied expectation here that you must demonstrate or provide evidence that you do meet these criteria. How do you balance it? Because it ends up being either a very long proposal or a proposal that gets in terms of providing evidence.
And I'll tell you what led to that. Because if you consider grass-making organizations, it's difficult for them to write proposals. Let's admit it. We can hardly develop our own theory of change. Let's just be honest out there. So generally what happens is they get fundraisers or proposal writers. They scrape together the money and they produce this boilerplate with 80% of the information is there. So at least they know the grammar is checked, they know the bullets are checked, they know the spelling is checked, they know it's double line spacing, they know the margins, they know all of that. So the point that I want to make with that is, NGOs have got in their own mind their own approach. Doesn't matter what we ask for. They want to make sure you're going to get this information. So as much as we have got into a trap of standardizing the information we want, they've also come in the trap. This is how wonderful we are. This is the environment in which we work. This is the solution we provide. And this is the capacity we have. This is our credibility. This is our awards. And this is who we are and this is what we do. Finish and clear. So the point that I want to make is they've all standardized. Whether you ask for it or not, you're going to get it. And so until, this is also where there's a big opportunity for funders, we capacitate this sector to give us what we need, or we need to tell them what we need. I'm suggesting to you the only way you're going to get out of that trap is you've got to relook at all your criteria, all your funding principles, and you've got to restate it. And hopefully with the knowledge you've gained today, because by doing that, you will force people to submit different stuff to you. You're not going to get it until you ask for it. And that is my problem at the moment with corporates, because they've all got this standard kind of thing, but that is what's led to a standard application process. It's this spray and pray. I'm going to send it to you anyway because, you're one of 400 that got it. And then I'm going to phone you 2 times a week. Because it's our fault. We weren't clear on what we wanted. So they assumed what they give us is okay. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy here.